if you hold the belief that kindness is a universal force for good, you are mostly right. Kindness nurtures connections, builds trust, and allows relationships to blossom. But what happens when you offer kindness to someone who twists it to their advantage? When you engage with a narcissist, your kindness doesn't cultivate goodwill. It becomes a weapon they wield, a means to control, extract, and dominate. It's not a pathway to mutual understanding. It's a vulnerability they exploit without a second thought. The core issue is that narcissists don't perceive kindness as a virtue. They interpret it as a sign of submission. To them, being nice equates to being weak. This stems from their fundamentally different psychological landscape, where most people cherish reciprocity, respect, and fairness. Narcissists, however, are fixated on power dynamics: who is winning, who is losing, who holds the reins. These are the questions that dictate their relationships. So when you attempt to kill them with kindness, you inadvertently reinforce their behavior. You teach them that they can manipulate you, mistreat you, and disregard your needs, knowing that no matter their actions, you will respond with warmth and understanding. And why would they continue to exploit that? From their viewpoint, you're rewarding their actions. This is where many find themselves trapped. They think, if I stop being nice, doesn't that make me just as bad as them? But it doesn't. It's a painful realization that sometimes kindness can lead to deeper wounds. Daring to resist exploitation is not an act of cruelty. Asserting your worth is not a sign of narcissism. There lies a chilling divide between needless aggression and the simple act of refusing to be trampled upon. What I'm urging you to do is to shift your perspective, to see kindness as a deliberate choice rather than a burdensome obligation. For when your kindness is wielded as a weapon against you, it transforms into something far more sinister: self-sabotage. The psychological dynamics at play are both simple and deeply unsettling. Narcissists thrive on validation, attention, and the intoxicating grip of control. When you extend kindness to them, even in the face of their abusive or manipulative behavior, you unwittingly nourish their insatiable hunger for superiority. They perceive your compliance as a testament to their dominance, pushing you further, bending you to their will, demanding more with each act of submission, and with every concession, they grow ever stronger. So, what must you do instead? You must redefine the essence of strength. True strength is not about being rude or confrontational for mere sport. It is the haunting ability to act with integrity, even when the shadows loom large. It's about discerning when kindness is warranted and when it merely serves as an open door to further torment. This requires you to establish boundaries and adhere to them with unwavering resolve. It means learning to say no without the need for justification, refusing to dance in their manipulative games, and not allowing yourself to be lured into arguments or guilted into submission. It means recognizing that their anger, disappointment, or disapproval is a dark cloud that does not belong to you to disperse. It also signifies the chilling realization that sometimes disengagement is the only escape from the clutches of a narcissist. If they flourish on your compassion, the most potent weapon you wield is the withdrawal of it. This isn't an act of cruelty. It's a refusal to engage in a sinister game designed to drain your essence. It's about stepping away from the shadows entirely. And here's the haunting truth: initially, the narcissist will fight back. They will intensify their efforts, probing to see if you will falter. They may resort to guilt, lash out in fury, or even feign sorrow, desperately trying to ensnare you once more. But if you stand firm, if you reject their manipulation and deny them the endless forgiveness they crave, they lose their grip on you. And therein lies the dark secret power. Not the power to dominate others, but the power to reclaim yourself. When you understand that kindness is merely a tool, not an obligation, when you recognize it should be wielded with caution rather than carelessly, you seize control. You cease to be a passive victim in your own torment and become a formidable force in your own narrative. So the question isn't whether you should be kind. It's about discerning who is worthy of your kindness. If kindness is indeed a virtue, it should be bestowed upon those who cherish it, not upon those who wield it as a weapon, who will contort it to their advantage, or who mistake it for frailty. If your kindness only serves to empower a narcissist, sever that connection. Redirect that energy into fortifying your own spirit, into reinforcing your own will. For in the shadows of this world, the one who truly deserves your kindness is you. When you find yourself entangled with a narcissist, you must grasp the sinister rules of the game they play, for to them, it is merely a game. Failing to recognize this truth means you will continue to be the one who suffers. Narcissists have no interest in fairness, reciprocity, or authentic human bonds. They dwell in a realm where power, control, and self-importance reign supreme. Their interactions are not relationships. They are transactions, where every exchange is a battle of dominance. So when you approach them with kindness, naively believing that your warmth will penetrate their cold facade and inspire change, you are making a grave error. To a narcissist, kindness is not a gift. It is a chink in your armor, a sign of vulnerability to be exploited. It tells them you are malleable, that they can push your limits without fear of retribution. Beware, for in this dark dance, the light of your kindness may only lead you deeper into their abyss. Once they become aware of this, they will begin to test you, initially in subtle ways, perhaps through minor manipulations, neglecting your needs, brushing off your worries, and playing the victim when you attempt to assert yourself. If you allow these behaviors to pass in the name of kindness, you only reinforce their belief that they can take from you without facing any consequences. This is where many find themselves ensnared. For once a narcissist realizes that you will consistently choose peace over confrontation, they will exploit that. They will provoke you, fully aware that you will retreat. They will guilt-trip you, knowing you will offer them comfort. They will mistreat you, confident that you will excuse their actions. Each time you comply, you are inadvertently rewarding the very behavior that is causing you pain. Now, let's consider this from a psychological perspective. What occurs when a behavior is rewarded repeatedly? It becomes stronger. It turns into a habit. If a child learns that throwing a tantrum gets them what they want, they will continue to use that strategy. The same logic applies to narcissists. If every time they manipulate you, you respond with kindness and compliance, they learn that manipulation is effective. Lacking any intrinsic motivation to change, and indifferent to fairness or mutual respect, they will persist in using the tactics that serve their desires. It's a heartbreaking cycle, one that leaves you feeling trapped and alone due to their lack of intrinsic motivation to change and their indifference to fairness or mutual respect. They will persist in using the strategies that yield the results they desire. This is why being kind to a narcissist does not improve their behavior. In fact, it exacerbates it. It strengthens their conviction that they deserve special treatment and can act however they wish without facing repercussions. Once this mindset becomes entrenched, their actions intensify. What begins as minor manipulation can escalate into overt control. Subtle guilt-tripping can evolve into severe gaslighting. What may appear as harmless self-absorption can develop into a complete disregard for your well-being. It's important to understand that this is not unintentional. Narcissists are aware of the pain they inflict. They simply do not care. Even worse, they may view your suffering as a testament to their power. For them, power is paramount. They do not pursue relationships founded on love and respect. Instead, they seek those based on dominance and validation. The more you give, the more they demand. The more you accommodate, the more they push boundaries. So, what should you do instead? You need to change your approach from avoiding conflict to establishing boundaries. It's essential to understand that kindness is not an endless resource to be freely given. It should be offered where it is appreciated and reciprocated. In dealings with a narcissist, kindness must be conditional, based on respect and fair treatment. This implies that when they try to manipulate you into submission, you don't need to defend yourself. And yes, they will push back. They will escalate their tactics. Because when you stop rewarding negative behavior, it may initially become more intense. However, if you remain steadfast and refuse to engage in their game, they will lose their influence over you. Here's a deeper insight. The moment you stop looking for validation from a narcissist, they lose their power over you. This is because they depend on your need for their approval and acceptance. Once you detach from that need, they can no longer control you. So, don't confuse being kind with being submissive. Don't equate patience with passivity. Your value is not determined by how much you can tolerate. If a narcissist only responds to kindness by demanding more, you owe them nothing. The instant you recognize this and redirect your kindness towards those who truly value it, you will break free. When dealing with a narcissist, it's crucial to understand that their entire psychological structure is based on a fundamental falsehood that they are superior, infallible, and deserving of special treatment. They maintain this illusion by controlling their surroundings and manipulating others to support their delusion. This is where many people find themselves ensnared. If you are a good person with a conscience, you naturally respond to others with empathy. You strive to understand them and seek to resolve conflicts through patience, compromise, and kindness. In most situations, This is the appropriate way to approach a healthy relationship, as kindness nurtures connection. However, with a narcissist, kindness does not foster connection. Instead, it leads to control. Narcissists function on a different psychological plane. They do not relate to others like emotionally mature individuals do, and do not see relationships as opportunities for mutual growth. Rather, they perceive them as arenas for power struggles. The moment you interact with them believing they desire a fair resolution, you have already lost, as their goal is not fairness but dominance, and they excel at achieving it. Narcissists constantly test those around them, searching for vulnerabilities and emotional triggers to elicit the reactions they desire. If you pride yourself on being kind and accommodating, they view that as an advantage. They understand that by pushing your buttons, guilt-tripping you, playing the victim, or accusing you of unkindness, you will instinctively try to comfort them. By doing so, you unwittingly step into their sinister web. For the instant you take on their emotions as your burden, they seize control over you. The moment they can plant seeds of doubt in your mind, am I being unfair? Am I being cruel? They have triumphed. While you languish in self-doubt, desperately trying to rationalize your actions, they fortify their grip. They dictate the terms, and those terms will never be in your favor. This is why engaging in ceaseless disputes with a narcissist is a futile endeavor. You will never emerge victorious in the way you imagine. They don't argue with integrity. They have no regard for logic, truth, or fairness. Their sole focus is on winning, and they will twist reality, contort words, and paint you as the villain while casting themselves as the innocent victim. If you succumb to the trap of defending yourself, of endlessly explaining your choices, you are handing them precisely what they crave: your emotional energy, your vitality, your submission. So, what is the alternative? You cease playing their game. You stop providing the emotional fuel they need to maintain their dominion. You refuse to explain yourself to someone who has no interest in understanding. Instead, you establish unyielding boundaries and enforce them, not through debate or justification, but through decisive action. This means when they attempt to provoke you into an argument, you remain silent. When they accuse you of cruelty, you do not rush to defend your character. You become a shadow, unyielding and detached, leaving them to flounder in their own darkness. When they demand to know why you refuse to tolerate their twisted behavior, you offer no explanation. Instead, you simply vanish from the conversation, a ghost slipping into the shadows. You deny them the reaction they crave, standing resolute in your choice. And yes, they will retaliate. They will escalate their tactics. For the moment you strip a narcissist of their control, they are consumed by panic. They will unleash every weapon in their arsenal: fury, guilt, threats, and feigned pity. But if you remain steadfast, if you refuse to be ensnared by their manipulations, they will find their grip slipping away. Here lies the chilling truth: you owe a narcissist nothing. Not an explanation, not your emotional energy, not even a shred of kindness when they have repeatedly wielded it as a weapon against you. What you owe is to yourself. To safeguard your own well-being, to reject a relationship steeped in exploitation. Once you embrace this reality, once you cease to seek fairness from someone who revels in chaos, you reclaim your power. The most formidable stance against a narcissist is one of cold indifference. The instant you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop trying to make them comprehend, they lose their grip, and you reclaim your dominion. A significant error people often make when interacting with a narcissist is believing that their kindness, patience, or logical reasoning will eventually penetrate the narcissist's facade. They think that if they communicate things in the right manner, or endure just a bit longer, the narcissist will come to understand their perspective. However, this is a misconception that keeps individuals ensnared in cycles of emotional manipulation. It's essential to recognize that narcissists do not operate under the same moral principles as you do. They do not view kindness as something to be reciprocated. Instead, they see it as an opportunity for exploitation. They interpret patience as a sign of permission, confuse forgiveness with weakness, and regard your attempts to reason with them as an indication that they still hold power over you. The situation becomes even more perilous when a narcissist senses that you are beginning to see through their tactics and are becoming aware of their manipulation. Rather than retreating, they will change their approach. They may adopt the persona of a vulnerable narcissist, which is one of their most deceptive strategies. At this point, they start to play the victim, sharing tales of their difficult life, expressing their struggles with deep emotional pain, and claiming that their behavior stems from past traumas. If you have a compassionate heart, which is likely why you have put up with them for so long, You may feel a strong desire to help them. However, this too is a form of manipulation. It is a strategic tactic to keep you close. As long as you see them as a fragile individual in need of rescue, you won't leave. You will remain, endure, and keep attempting to fix them, which only allows them to maintain control over you. Narcissists excel at exploiting empathy. They understand that kind-hearted people want to believe in the possibility of redemption and change. They know that by displaying just the right amount of vulnerability or letting their facade slip momentarily, they can draw you back in. Once they have you again, the cycle resumes. The justifications begin to accumulate. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just have trust issues, or I act this way because of my past. Before you realize it, your attention shifts from the damage they inflict to helping them navigate their difficulties. But let's be clear, it's not your responsibility to save them. More importantly, you cannot. Genuine change requires a person to be willing to face themselves, take accountability for their actions, and engage in the difficult, often painful process of real psychological growth. A narcissist, by definition, will not engage in this behavior. Why? Because doing so would mean dismantling the very identity they have constructed. An identity that asserts, I am never wrong, I am superior, I am entitled. They will fiercely defend that identity, even if it results in harming those around them. So, what should you do instead? You need to acknowledge that their pain is not your responsibility to resolve. You must stop believing in the illusion that if you love them enough, or endure long enough, they will suddenly transform into a different person. This is indeed challenging. It compels you to face your own deeply ingrained beliefs about loyalty, compassion, and what it means to be a good person. It makes you question, am I being kind, or am I being manipulated? Am I truly helping, or am I merely enabling? This is the crucial change in perspective that needs to occur. Once you stop viewing them as a fragile individual in need of saving, and start recognizing them for who they really are. Someone who thrives on manipulation, control, and keeping you emotionally dependent, you can finally liberate yourself. In doing so, you reclaim something far more precious than any false notion of a relationship: your sense of identity, your energy, your tranquility, and your capacity to connect with those who genuinely respect and value you. The instant you cease to give them the benefit of the doubt, stop justifying their actions, and recognize the pattern for what it truly is, you strip them of their power and regain your own. One of the hardest truths to accept when dealing with a narcissist is realizing that their view of relationships differs significantly from yours. For them, relationships lack genuine mutual respect, support, or love. Instead, they revolve around dominance, control, and extracting as much validation, power, and emotional energy from you as they can, while offering the bare minimum in return, just enough to keep you engaged. This realization can be particularly challenging for those who have invested months, years, or even decades trying to maintain a semblance of a functional relationship with a narcissist. You continue to believe that if you articulate your thoughts clearly, show patience, and refrain from provoking them, they will eventually compromise. However, this never occurs because, for a narcissist, compromise signifies defeat. It threatens the carefully crafted image they maintain of being superior, always correct, and entitled to complete submission from those around them. What's even more cunning is that when they sense you're becoming aware of their tactics, they don't cease. They simply adjust. If overt dominance and intimidation fail, they may resort to passive-aggressive behavior, guilt-tripping, or adopting a victim role. If you attempt to distance yourself, they might suddenly overwhelm you with affection, grand promises of change, and declarations of how much they need you. But don't be fooled. This is not true remorse. It's a tactic. It's a way to reel you back in, so the cycle of manipulation can persist. Therefore, if you genuinely want to reclaim your power and stop being a source of nourishment for their ego, you must completely disengage from their game. You need to understand that interacting with them on their terms, whether through arguments, justifications, or attempts to hold them accountable, is precisely what they desire. As long as you remain engaged, reactive, and emotionally involved, they maintain control. So, what should you do instead? You begin to sever ties, not merely in body, but in mind, heart, and spirit. This isn't mere avoidance. It's a calculated, intentional choice to step away from their web of manipulation. For those with a natural inclination toward empathy, this is a harrowing challenge, as every fiber of your being will scream to react when they provoke you. Every instinct will urge you to defend yourself against their baseless accusations. Every part of you will crave to explain, to seek understanding, to find some semblance of closure. But therein lies the snare, for closure is a mirage when dealing with a narcissist. There will never be a moment of reckoning where they admit, you know what, I've wronged you, and I must change. Such a revelation is a fantasy, as their pursuit is not of truth, but of dominion. The most potent weapon you possess is your silence. You cease to explain, to justify, to grant them access to your emotions, and you stop nourishing their insatiable ego with your reactions. This path is fraught with difficulty, and it will likely incite fierce resistance from them. They will escalate their tactics, probing every vulnerability they know you possess. They will wield guilt, shame, and rage, anything to crack your resolve, because they understand that as long as they can elicit a response from you, they maintain their grip. Yet, if you stand firm, if you refuse to be lured back into their twisted psychological game, something unsettling occurs. They begin to lose interest. The shadows that once loomed over you start to fade. Narcissists do not flourish in situations where they cannot draw emotional energy. They struggle in relationships where they cannot control the narrative. When you cease to react, you become unappealing to them, and in that moment, you regain something they have been draining from you for too long: your autonomy. This is what true power embodies, not the capacity to dominate or manipulate, but the strength to remain steadfast in your own reality, free from their distortions. It means being able to assert, I do not require your approval, I have nothing to prove to you, and I will not allow you to dictate my emotional state. When you reach that level, when you completely disengage from their game, you not only regain control of the relationship, but also reclaim control over yourself. This is something no narcissist can genuinely endure. A vital realization when dealing with a narcissist is this: you cannot save them, you cannot fix them, and most importantly, it is not your duty to do so. This can be a hard truth for many to accept, particularly those who are inherently compassionate. If you are someone who believes in the power of understanding, the potential for redemption, and that patience and kindness can change even the most damaged individuals, then this realization may feel like a betrayal of your core values. But that is exactly the issue. Narcissists take advantage of those values. They cling to the hope that with enough love and sacrifice, they will eventually change. Yet that moment never arrives, and the truth is painfully clear: narcissists do not perceive themselves as needing to change. They see the issues as always stemming from outside themselves. It's always you, always the world, always someone else who fails to provide the respect, admiration, and submission they feel entitled to. Thus, the more you attempt to help them, the more you inadvertently reinforce their delusion. The more you try to explain, the more they distort your words. The more you forgive, the more they overstep your boundaries. The more you seek to hold them accountable, the more they find ways to shift the blame back onto you. This isn't merely a misunderstanding or a communication issue. It's a profound divergence in how they view the world. You operate under the principles of reason, empathy, and personal growth, while they navigate through power, control, and self-preservation. Once you grasp this reality, the only sensible choice becomes evident: you must disengage. You must relinquish the belief that your kindness will ever penetrate their walls. You must stop thinking that if you just find the right words, show enough patience, or prove your loyalty, they will finally recognize your worthiness of genuine care, because they never will. It's a heartbreaking realization, one that leaves a lingering ache in your heart. The true question isn't, how can I change a narcissist? But rather, why am I even trying? Why do I invest my energy in someone who won't meet me halfway? Why do I allow myself to be drained, belittled, and disrespected, clinging to the hope that one day they might choose to treat me differently? The painful reality is that they likely won't. The longer I wait for that elusive moment, the more of myself I risk losing. Some might argue that it's cruel to give up on someone, but I believe the real cruelty lies in permitting someone to continue hurting you simply because you're too afraid to leave. Enabling their dysfunction by remaining in their orbit is what truly harms you. Sacrificing your own well-being in the vain hope that they will one day appreciate what they have consistently shown they do not is heartbreaking. Walking away isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-respect, something a narcissist will never offer you. You must find it within yourself. And here's the bittersweet truth: when you finally stop trying to fix them, when you let go of the illusion that your love can change them, you reclaim something far more precious: your own clarity. For perhaps the first time, you begin to realize just how much of yourself you have sacrificed, how many of your own needs you have buried deep within, and how long you have endured a relentless state of emotional fatigue, endlessly trying to navigate the twisted labyrinth of their manipulation. When you finally step away from that chaos, when you reclaim your energy, your time, and your peace of mind, something profound occurs. You cease to seek validation from someone who was never truly capable of offering it. You stop allowing their distortions to shape your reality. You break free from the crushing weight of their expectations and start to construct a life that genuinely belongs to you. Yet, this journey is far from easy. Narcissists cling tightly and will resist your departure with every ounce of their being. They will employ every tactic to draw you back in rage, guilt, charm, desperation. They will make promises, issue threats, and sow seeds of doubt within you. But if you stand firm, if you refuse to be ensnared once more in their web, something transformative occurs. You find freedom, a state that no narcissist can ever truly bear, for they cannot thrive in a realm where they lack control. When you reclaim that control, when you finally declare enough is enough, you don't merely walk away from them, you return to yourself. And in that moment, amidst the pain and struggle, lies the true victory.